The sound of a dry, echoing slap rang out, reverberating off the glass panels and marble floors, bringing the grand lobby of Granite Trust Bank to a standstill for a heartbeat. The air, once filled with the clatter of keyboards, names being called at the reception, and the gentle laughter of uniformly dressed, white-shirted employees, froze it as if someone had hit pause on the entire system. The woman who had been slapped stood motionless, the outline of a hand glowing red on her left cheek. Her eyes didn't well up, nor did she lower her head. They stayed fixed on the man in front of her, deep, dark eyes calm like the surface of a lake before a storm. "I've already called the police," the man announced, chest heaving with anger, voice rising loud enough for the entire bank to hear. "We don't serve your kind here." His name was Bradley Kemp, customer service manager at Granite Trust's branch, well known for his polished manners in boardroom meetings, yet wearing a very different face when dealing with clients who didn't match the ideal profile. Two security guards appeared within seconds, asking no questions. One stepped forward, signaling with a glance. The other pushed the woman's arms behind her, ready to cuff her. But the woman in a gray cardigan and plain white blouse simply shook her head. No struggle, no physical resistance, only a voice, calm and firm as cold steel. "I believe there's been a mistake." Bradley scoffed, the smirk of a man used to holding the reins of power curling on his lips. A young employee nearby tried to intervene, but was silenced by a sharp look from Bradley. Around them, customers backed away. Some pulled out their phones, quietly recording. Among them, a girl in her 20s live-streamed the scene. Her screen displayed the title, "This is how Granite Trust Bank treats black customers?" The woman who had been slapped was known as Nora Ellis. At least, that's what her paperwork said. But no one here knew her real name was Camille Warren, CEO of Warren Holdings, and the very owner of this bank after a discreet acquisition just 3 weeks earlier. And no one knew she was here today, not because she was lost or in the wrong place, but for a much deeper reason. To see if this branch, the same one that had once rejected her aunt's loan application, had truly changed. 60 minutes before the slap, Camille walked into the bank like any ordinary customer, her curly hair wrapped neatly in a smooth beige scarf, her signature glasses replaced by a frameless pair, often seen on Forbes covers. She wore simple clothes, a worn-out handbag frayed at the seams. No one paid attention to her, or more accurately, everyone had learned to not notice people like her. She waited patiently in line, observing. An older white man before her was invited into a private consultation room with the offer, "Sir, we'd be delighted to help you plan your retirement investments." A young white woman after him was welcomed with a cup of coffee and asked, "Would you like to open an additional savings account for your upcoming vacation?" When it was Camille's turn, the energy at the reception seemed to instantly dissipate. She approached with a soft voice, requesting to open a savings account and inquire about a small business loan. Her documents, business registration, income statements, excellent credit score, were all in perfect order. Aiden, the receptionist, glanced at them briefly before lowering his head to make a call. No small talk, no water offered, no follow-up questions. "All our advisors are busy," he said. "You can go online to schedule an appointment." Camille nodded. "I'm happy to wait," she said, smiling gently, eyes never leaving the receptionist's face. It wasn't a request. It was a test. 10 minutes later, another white customer walked in, no appointment, no documents. Peter Milton, the branch manager, personally came out to greet him. "So pleased to meet you. Come right into our private conference room. We offer special services for businessmen like you." Camille heard every word, and then, sealing the divide, Bradley appeared, his eyes scanning Camille from head to toe. Judgment formed in less than a second. "You were already asked to leave, weren't you?" he said, palm on the desk, voice lowering but sharp. "We don't serve local clients without a prior financial history in our system." "I provided all the necessary information," Camille replied, voice steady, unshaken. "I am entitled to consultation like any other customer." Then Bradley said the line that made the entire bank hold its breath. "If you don't leave, I will call security and the police. We don't serve clients like you." Camille didn't step back. She stood on her ground. "I'll wait," she said. "And I hope you're prepared for a very important conversation." That moment, still and silent, was the calm before the storm. Every phone camera was recorded. Every blink, every word, every breath in the room was now evidence. Bradley lost his patience. He stepped forward. "This is your final warning. Leave now." Camille didn't flinch. And then the unthinkable happened. He raised his hand and slapped her, fast, hard, and with the fury of someone whose power had just been defied. The slap rang out like an alarm bell. Some customers screamed. A few employees stood up. The girl live streaming gasped. "Oh my God, he just slapped her. She didn't do anything." Camille slowly turned her head back, her hand brushing the stinging cheek. But instead of reacting, she let out a long, deep, and resolute breath. "I think it's time we stop," she said, eyes locking onto the nearest camera, "and let everyone know who really owns this place." That was the moment the police walked in, and what happened next would change this bank forever. 3 days before the handcuffs nearly clicked around her wrists, Camille Warren, or rather Nora Ellis, walked into the central branch of Granite Trust with a flawless application in hand. Everything had been meticulously prepared: business licenses, 3-month bank statements, tax documents, a gold standard credit score, and even a detailed plan to expand a financial advisory model specifically for Black women. No one here knew that the woman in the worn cardigan and faded canvas bag had once spoken at the World Economic Forum. No one recognized the gentle voice that had once moved an entire global finance summit when she spoke of inclusion in the banking industry. She didn't come to be recognized. She came to be underestimated. On the first day, Camille arrived mid-morning, a time that wasn't too busy but active enough to get a sense of the branch's rhythm. She waited in line like any other customer. Ahead of her was a white man in his 50s. Aiden, a new receptionist, greeted him with a warm smile, offered him a private consultation room, coffee, and a printed breakdown of investment options. When Camille's turn came, Aiden's demeanor shifted. The smile vanished. His eyes skimmed her documents, then turned vacant. "All account information is on our website," Hoodie said impatiently. "If you're just opening a basic account, you can use the self-service ATM in the corner." Camille replied gently, without visible reaction. "I have some specific questions regarding a small business loan," she said, her voice calm but clear. "I'd like to speak with a financial advisor." Aiden hesitated, then made a call. But it wasn't a call for assistance, it was avoidance. After hanging up, he said, "All our advisors are booked for the day. You can schedule through the app." Camille nodded. "Thank you," she said, and left without another word. On the second day, Camille returned, this time early in the morning. She came more prepared, with her full business plan, a social enterprise certification, income proof from service contracts, even a reference letter from another corporate client. All of it neatly packed in a plain brown leather briefcase. Aiden seemed surprised to see her back. He reluctantly accepted the documents and referred her to another employee, Vivian Mercer. She was in her 60s, silver hair tied in a tight bun, white blouse with lace trim, her face expressionless. Vivian read through the documents like she was grading a child's spelling test. She didn't ask Camille about her loan goals or explain the process. Instead, she demanded, "I need a notarized birth certificate, 3 years of financial reports, and a signed lease for your office space. Without those, your file will be delayed." "I was under the impression that startup loans under $50,000 didn't require that level of documentation," Camille asked gently, "at least according to your bank's website." Vivian looked up, lips tightly pressed. "We apply flexible policies on a case-by-case basis. This is one of those cases." As Camille walked away, she saw a white couple being counseled on investment services. No one asked them for a birth certificate or a lease. They brought nothing but a wallet and a cheerful smile. Day 3. Camille returned again, this time with a more polished appearance. Not extravagant, but more structured. Khaki coat, leather flats, hair tied back neatly. Clara, the older receptionist, greeted her with an unusual look, nodding gently. Her expression wasn't cold. It held something warmer, cautious, almost as if she could recognize something. Camille smiled. "I have an appointment with a financial advisor regarding a business loan," she said. "I submitted my application yesterday." Clara quickly checked the system. No appointment, no record, nothing at all. "I'm sorry, I don't see any information about your file," Clara whispered, then leaned in almost inaudibly. "It may have been moved. I'll check." Camille nodded as Bradley Kemp's eyes began drifting toward her from behind the service counter. Minutes later, he approached. Calm voice, heavy with authority. "You're still here?" he asked. "I have a few questions that need answers," Camille replied. Bradley glanced at her folder, then folded it as if he were discarding trash. "I told you before, we don't serve local clients who can't prove credibility. My credit score is 820. I have tax returns, bank statements, and ID verification," Camille said, her eyes turning sharp for the first time. "Where are you from?" Bradley asked, lowering his voice like he was uncovering something suspicious. "I live in this city," Camille said. "Recently moved my business to the west side." Bradley shook his head. "That's a high-risk zone. Doesn't qualify under our preferred policies. If you don't leave, I'll call security." "I'm not going anywhere," Camille said slowly, deliberately. "I'm only asking to be served like any other customer." And then, in a flash, maybe out of provocation, maybe instinct from threatened authority, Bradley raised his hand. "That slap. You already know it." After the slap, Camille didn't retaliate. She simply looked at Bradley, eyes steady, as if she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Not for herself, but for everyone who had ever been dismissed for having the wrong name, the wrong face, the wrong story. "I think you've completed your test," Camille said. "Now it's time I give you my feedback." Clara, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward and handed Camille a folder. Camille nodded in thanks, her eyes never leaving those watching her. "I'm going to show everyone exactly what's happening here," she said. "And this time, the whole city will listen." The sound of a police siren pierced through the end of the street, slipping through the thick glass of Granite Trust Bank, shrieking like an arrow slicing the tense air of the grand lobby. All eyes turned to the main entrance, where two officers in dark uniforms strode in. Their steps were swift, deliberate, scanning the gathered crowd with seasoned eyes. And at the very center of it all, Camille Warren, known to them only as Nora Ellis, stood still, her face composed, as if everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Bradley Kemp, still panting from the confrontation, pointed at Camille, voice almost gleeful. "That's her! She's the one causing trouble. She assaulted an employee, refused to leave when asked." Camille said nothing. She simply turned to the officer approaching and spoke calmly. "I have one request before you proceed. Please review the security footage. And if possible, wait 5 minutes. Just 5. The lead officer, a stern-faced white man in his 50s, looked at her closely. He said nothing, but he seemed to be weighing her words. A strange hush fell over the lobby, broken only by the soft clicking of a nearby phone camera live streaming. On the young woman's screen, viewership climbed by the second. Camille made a quick phone call. She held the device to her ear, her hand steady. "It's time," she said, and closed the phone. No one understood what she had triggered, but less than 3 minutes later, the automatic glass doors slid open again. 3 people entered, dressed like delegates from a high-level summit. A black woman in an Armani suit, an older white man holding a legal folder, and a young Asian man carrying a glowing tablet. They didn't stop at the front desk, didn't introduce themselves, didn't hesitate. They walked straight to Camille, stood beside her, and nodded in unison. "Miss Warren," the black woman said, her tone formal, but warm. "All documents have been prepared. Legal confirmation is in place. The surveillance footage has been backed up." "What did she just say?" whispered one staff member. "Warren who?" Bradley started to stagger. Wait a minute. Who are you? What did you just call her?" Camille stepped forward. From the leather case she had carried for 3 days, She drew out a thick folder embossed with gold seals and signed signatures. She didn't need to raise her voice. Silence had already settled over the space. "I'm Camille Warren," she said, Chief Executive Officer of Warren Holdings, the company that acquired Granite Trust 3 weeks ago through a confidential merger. She turned to the officer. "I'm not a customer. I'm the new owner of this bank, and I've been conducting an anonymous audit of the service process and customer culture at this branch. What you've just witnessed was part of that audit." Bradley went pale. Words that might have been a defense died in his throat. Nearby, Peter Milton, the branch manager, stepped out from his office, face frozen like stone. "Wait, this is a joke, right? You're the CEO? The owner of this bank?" Camille nodded gently, but it shattered the room. "I spent 3 days here as a regular person. I witnessed customers like me being denied, disregarded, misinformed, and systematically delayed. And this morning, I was slapped, threatened with arrest." A soft sniffle came from the end of the lobby. It was Clara, the older receptionist, who had stood silent throughout, observing everything. Now she stepped forward, holding a file. "I knew who you were," she said, her voice trembling. "From the first day, I stayed quiet, but I backed up the full customer logs, internal memos, and verbal instructions prioritizing clients who looked more trustworthy." Camille accepted the file, her gaze softening. "Thank you, Clara. It's people like you who make me believe this institution still has a chance to be redeemed." The young woman live streaming was now in tears, her screen flooded with thousands of comments. "She's really the CEO? This is going viral. That slap, now it hits different." The officer turned to Bradley. "You said she was the aggressor, but I just reviewed the footage. You were the one who struck first." He retracted the handcuffs and turned to Camille. "Would you like to press charges?" The entire lobby turned toward her, but she simply shook her head. "No," she said. "I'm not here to destroy a man. I'm here to expose a system." A soft round of applause came from the back of the room, then another. Slowly, the customers nearby began to clap, not in celebration, but in solidarity. A voice had risen on behalf of hundreds that had been silent. Camille stepped to the center of the lobby. "I'll keep this brief," she said. "As of today, Bradley Kemp is no longer an employee of Granite Trust. Every staff member involved in racial, regional, or appearance-based discrimination will face an independent investigation." She turned to Peter Milton, who stood stunned. "You will also be reviewed. If you chose silence over 3 days while watching misconduct unfold, that silence is complicity." She looked back to Clara. "Starting next week, you will be promoted to head of customer experience for this branch. I need people who speak up, not those who bow at the right moment." Once again, silence fell. But this time it wasn't tension, it was shock. Camille looked around. Every pair of eyes was searching itself after the mask had been ripped away. Then she spoke. "This is not just about a slap, not just about a woman being misunderstood. This is about everyone who's ever walked into a place like this with hope and walked out with humiliation." She turned and walked away slowly. Behind her, an assistant held a red envelope containing scanned copies of every misconduct file from the past 3 months. The police documented the incident. The press arrived. Social media exploded. But Camille didn't look back, because the real battle was only just beginning. 3 days after that fateful morning, the name Camille Warren was everywhere. From the finance section of the Wall Street Journal to viral TikTok videos titled, "Slapped in the Bank She Owns." The clip was only 43 seconds long, yet it carried the weight of an indictment on an entire industry. Millions watched. Thousands commented. But Camille gave no interviews, held no press conference. She chose what few ever do: silent action. On Monday, Granite Trust Bank did not open during regular hours. A single sign hung on the glass doors, bold black letters on a white background. Temporarily closed for reconstruction, not of systems, but of people. As customers waited in confusion, inside the branch, an unprecedented meeting was underway. Camille stood on a platform in the center of the lobby, the very place where, just days earlier, She had been treated as a public nuisance. Below her sat the entire branch staff. Aiden, Clara, Linda from accounting, the loan advisory team, security guards, all seated in rows, silent. "I'm not here to retell what happened," Camille began, "because we all know how bad it was. The question today is, who among you has the courage to stand up, face what went wrong, and choose change?" No one answered. Only the sound of tight, uneasy breathing filled the room. Camille's gaze turned to Peter Milton, the branch manager. He sat in the front row, back stiff, eyes cast down. On the table before him was a gray envelope, termination letter. "Mr. Milton," Camille said, her voice not angry but cold as glass, "you held a position of leadership, but you didn't protect your staff. You didn't protect your clients. You chose silence. You chose to protect numbers over people." Peter nodded faintly, lips pressed shut, no excuses, no tears. But when he stepped onto the platform to accept his dismissal, his hands trembled. Camille didn't extend a hand, but she bowed her head, a gesture of parting, full of humanity. "You didn't fail because you were exposed," she said as he turned away. "You failed because you didn't do the right thing when you had the chance." Next came Harriet Doyle, the woman who once denied Camille's loan request with the cold language of policy. When Camille called her name, Harriet stepped up, but couldn't stand tall. "I'm not young anymore," she said, her voice nearly breaking. "I've worked in banking for 38 years. I learned to identify risk by things not found on a file. Skin color, speech, zip code. I never thought that was wrong, until I saw you that day." Camille held Harriet's eyes for a moment. Awakening doesn't always come early, but it's never too late to begin again. Harriet bowed and stepped down. She wasn't humiliated, just made to face the truth. Then came Clara. No one called her name. She walked up on her own, one hand holding a file, the other clutched against her chest like she was guarding her dignity. "I knew who you were from day one," she said, looking at Camille. "But I stayed silent because I was afraid of losing my job. I was afraid of being seen as disloyal. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Camille stepped down from the platform. The room froze as she embraced Clara, a real hug, long without pretense. "You were the one who handed me the files, who made me believe there was still light in this place," Camille said. "I don't need your apology. I need you to stay." Applause broke out, natural, spontaneous. "Starting today, you will lead the customer experience department," Camille announced. "I want every staff member to learn how to serve from this woman, the one who was once silent but chose to speak at the moment it mattered most." Then Camille pulled out the restructuring plan. On the screen behind her, the words appeared: "Granite Trust, a version without bias, assumptions, or prejudice." A new center was announced, the Camille Warren Center for Equity, housed at the bank's headquarters, where any customer could file complaints about discrimination. All cases would be handled by an independent counsel outside of branch authority. Camille pointed to a list of reforms: revamped application process, elimination of zip code or neighborhood-based judgment, publicly available customer evaluation criteria, random behavior audits using camera footage. Branch managers no longer have sole review power. Quarterly bonuses awarded to employees most voted by clients as fair and impartial. The room now felt different. Heads that had once bowed in shame now met her eyes, still uncertain but tinged with hope. Aiden, the young receptionist who had turned Camille away on day one, stood up. No one called on him. He simply walked forward, eyes red. I I was the first to reject you," he said, voice cracking. "I did it because I saw others do it, because I thought it was the culture. But I was wrong. I knew at the moment you were slapped. I didn't protect you. I didn't protect anyone." Camille stepped toward him. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I need you to begin again, starting now." Aiden lifted his head. Camille reached out, not as a CEO, but to help another human rise. The meeting ended with a handwritten pledge. Each employee was asked to write a single line: "I commit to putting people before policy." That paper was posted along a hallway wall for any client to read, to add to question. Granite Trust was no longer a bank of cold protocols and white shirts. It was becoming a place where trust sat on the desk, alongside every cup of coffee, every greeting, every decision. And Camille, from a quiet corner, watched them walk away, not with fear like 3 days ago, but with a glimmer in their eyes. The only light strong enough to repair a broken system: belief. 6 months later, on an early autumn morning, sunlight slanted gently through the glass facade of Granite Trust's Oakmore Avenue branch. No longer the harsh white glare of before, now soft golden light filtered through semi-transparent mesh curtains. The interior, too, had changed. Gone were the high glass partitions at service counters, replaced by round tables and cushioned gray chairs, inviting guests to sit face to face rather than across a barrier. Voices murmured, keys tapped, softly, and laughter, a sound once foreign to this place, rose in steady rhythm like breathing. At the center of the lobby stood a new feature: the Community Commitment Corner, where customers could share experiences, feedback, or service improvement ideas. The wooden board behind it held hundreds of handwritten notes, some neat from the elderly, others scribbled by children, all woven into a collective story of renewal. Camilla wasn't there that morning. She was attending a forum in another city, speaking on rebuilding trust in outdated systems. But her presence was still deeply felt in the large portrait hanging in the main hall. In it, she wore a pale beige coat, standing outside the bank, not with the gaze of a leader, but of someone who once stood outside those doors and now chose to remain at their threshold, holding them open for others. A boy of about 10, holding a math workbook, accompanied his grandmother into the bank that day. While she sat down for a loan consultation, he wandered the lobby until stopping in front of the portrait. "Grandma," he asked, "who's that lady?" The old woman looked up and followed his finger. Her eyes lit up, then softened. "That's the person who made this place different," she answered. "Different how?" the boy asked, curiosity wide in his eyes. "Back in the day, someone like me walked in and was met with cold stares," she said. "But now they call me ma'am and ask if I'd like some water." The boy nodded thoughtfully and sat down beside her. He looked at the portrait again, fingers brushing the words beneath. Camilla Warren, founder of the Center for Financial Equity, a believer that everyone deserves to be heard. In a meeting room nearby, Aiden, the young receptionist from that day, was leading a training session for new hires. He looked different now, hair neatly trimmed, posture firm, voice calmer. When recounting the past, Aiden never revealed who Camille was. He simply said, "Someone once walked in and we acted like they didn't exist. And in doing so, we missed the most important thing." Beside him sat Clara, now a regional customer experience advisor. She still carried her old brown leather notebook, filled with conversations and glances, because she believed great service wasn't written in KPIs, but lived in the way people were welcomed with their hearts. Clara told the new staff, "Don't wait for a customer to get angry to listen. Listen from the moment they are silent." Downstairs, where the branch manager's office once was, now stood the Camille Warren Center for Equity. The latest statistics were posted openly: the percentage of customers served within the first 5 minutes, loan rejection rates by region, all transparent, clear. Camille had kept her promise, not just fixing the process, but erasing the fear. On the reception table lay a new file, the applicant's name, Eloise Jenkins, the same name as Camille's late grandmother, once denied a loan 3 decades ago. But no one here noticed, and there was no need to, because here no one was judged by a name. Camille returned to the branch on a quiet weekend afternoon unannounced. She wore casual clothes, had no entourage, no cameras, just a small notebook and a pen. She sat in the lounge area observing. A young mother was helped through paperwork while holding her child. An elderly man was guided to a consultation desk and offered ginger tea. No one recognized her, and that made her smile. A young employee approached, bowing respectfully. "Is there anything I can help you with today, ma'am?" Camille nodded. "I just wanted to see if this place is still doing okay." He smiled. "We were taught that everyone who walks in carries a story. Our job is to listen first, then respond." "Very good," Camille replied. "That's very good." Before leaving, she visited the wall of handwritten notes. One new slip had just been pinned up, written in a child's uneven scrawl. Thank you, bank, for helping me and my mom. When I grow up, I want to help people like you do. Camille took her pen, wrote another note, folded it unsigned, and pinned it beside the boys. After she left, Clara came over and unfolded it. The note read, "All it takes is one kind heart in the right place. Everything can change." On her way out, Camille passed the young woman who had once live-streamed everything. She was now sitting at the cafe next door, laptop open to her blog titled, "Listening in Silence." When she saw Camille, she stood about to approach. Camille simply waved, a small, silent greeting. The woman understood, then sat back down, continuing her blog post titled, "A Slap, an Awakening in a Bank That Learned to Apologize." That night, Camille returned home. In her study, she opened her old notebook, the one where she had written her single goal when acquiring Granite Trust. Build a place where someone like my grandmother could walk in without being asked, "What are you doing here?" She crossed out the line, not because she had abandoned it, but because it was done. Then she wrote a new line. "Now it's time to bring this to even more places." And at the bottom, she underlined just 3 words, not the name of the bank, not her title. Just 3 words, "Trust blooms again."